Welcome to Video Village. I'm Mihir Shah, and today we are talking about Barbie. We're going to be doing a deep dive with my good friend Liv Horgan. So stick around for a deep dive on the making of Barbie, the impact it's had so far, and our favorite moments from the movie. Barbie's your favorite movie of the year. Is Barbie your favorite movie of the decade, of the 2020s? Just vibe it out.
So, unfortunately, the rewatch did things to me in terms of I looked at it a bit more objectively, and while I still love it, I love it so much, and it's so important, I do see some flaws now. I will admit. I won't speak to them because I'm not going to give that voice any room.
Yeah, let's wait. Yeah. Let's hold off on your nitpicks because I have some nitpicks we've already talked about, like just in passing, but we can dive into them more. I want to give the audience context for how we both saw this movie. So we both did a version of Barbenheimer. You saw Barbie on opening day, I believe, and then you saw Oppenheimer 2 days later. I saw Barbie and Oppenheimer both on Saturday on the same day. I did Oppenheimer first and then Barbie. And when you walked out of Barbie, you were like, holy shit, this movie just did something that I haven't seen in a while.
It genuinely felt like monumental. Like, this will be a year that I look back and say, that was the first time I saw Barbie. Like, I was like, clocked, all right, 2023. This is it. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to show it to my kids. I'm going to remember this day forever. Like, truly, it's like a core memory at this point. It's so important to me.
That's great. I had a similar reaction, being like, I haven't gone to the movie theater to see a big budget studio comedy for what it's worth. Like, that's what this is. Obviously, it's a huge IP, but like, I can't remember the last time I went to theaters to go see a Will Ferrell movie. You know? Like, this felt like in one sense, it felt like we were 15 years, like it's 2008, and like you're going to the movie to see Step Brothers. And on the other hand, it felt like, I was just like, movies are back. Like, when I like halfway through this movie, I was having so much fun, and I was like just reflecting on the fact that this has not happened because of COVID and because of streaming, but like so many things. I was just ecstatic to be there. Barbenheimer, do you there's jokes that like Oppenheimer needed Barbenheimer more than Barbie did, which like, yes, it definitely did. I wanted to talk about Barbenheimer briefly and like what that did for the movie. Just let's like spitting some facts. Barbie right now, so far, it's grossed $1.34 billion worldwide. Yeah. Second highest grossing film in 2023. It's behind the Super Mario Brothers movie by like 20 million. Which is wild to think about because like the Super Mario Brothers movie came and went and no one's talking about it, but the whole world, I guess, went and saw it.
Who saw it? I would like to know. Who saw that movie?
I think it's like, it's Illumination Entertainment, and that animation studio just knows how to market to kids. Because no one our age ever talks about the Minions movies or like, I don't know, any Despicable Me movie in general, but those movies consistently make like $1 billion at the box office.
So it's the kids.
It's the kids.
Have taken over.
I think there is like, it's a huge IP also, and it's an international thing. Like, everyone in the world knows who Mario is. So I don't know. I think Barbie's gonna pass it. Barbie's still playing in theaters. So Super Mario is just not in the picture anymore. And I think Barbie's going to be in the Oscars conversation, which we will hit later. And I think that's also going to add to its box office numbers. Highest grossing film directed solely by a woman. Highest grossing film by Warner Brothers ever. And the 17th highest grossing film of all time.
Wait, that Warner Brothers stat is kind of crazy to me. Like, I knew Greta, and I don't know why it's crazier to me than the number 17. That's not crazy to me. But the Warner Brothers stat, that's really interesting. Do you know what number 2 is? Do we know?
I do, and this is why I wanted to talk about it. So, like, number 2 in North America is The Dark Knight, which I find so fascinating.
Whoa, yeah.
And then number 2 worldwide, like, of all time, is Harry Potter, the final Harry Potter film, Deathly Hallows Part 2.
That is so crazy. Those are also movies that I went and saw in theaters, both of them, when they premiered. And that's so... Chris Nolan just can't catch a break. Barbie keeps beating him in every sense of the word.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about not Oppenheimer as a movie, but Christopher Nolan, because it's a good segue into Greta Gerwig's career, I think. So, like, Christopher Nolan's career basically goes... He does a debut short film that, you know, mainstream audiences have never seen. Then he does Memento, which, like, a lot of people, mainstream audiences, did see. Gets an Oscar nomination for screenplay. Does a movie called Insomnia that, like, doesn't have a big pop culture footprint, but, like, Al Pacino and Robin Williams both starred in. Like, it was a huge thing for his career. And then his third, like, kind of, like, known entity of a movie is Batman Begins. And so I think that, like, clearly mirrors Greta Gerwig's career, and it's kind of nuts, where, like, she has 3 movies out. She has one movie that no one's heard of that's called Nights and Weekends. That's technically her debut feature film. Right. Confused look on his face. Yeah, it came out like in 15, 13, like a while ago. And
that's a lie.
It's
I don't believe
it's crazy
you.
because Lady Bird was talked about as if it was her debut film, and I believed it, but it's not her debut film.
Wait, I've been lying to everyone I've ever met. Who is this man?
I don't know. I don't know anything about this film.
Oh my gosh, is it worth the watch? Do we know?
I mean, I don't know. I've heard, like, it's fine. Like, it's, you know, it doesn't feel like the Greta Gerwig we know and love today, but it's Greta Gerwig. And she's acting in it, which she doesn't do in her movies anymore. We should also mention that, like, she's an actress. Like, she was an actress for a lot of years.
And she pops up in things that you don't expect her to be in, and then you're like, is that Greta Gerwig? What is she doing in here? Like, I can't think of any example to back up my point, but I've just seen, like, rom-coms or just, like, funny little comedies that she ends up being in, and I'm like, what is she doing here? I don't know how she got in there, but
I think she did a lot of movies that were written and directed by Noah Baumbach, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah, so I know, like, Frances Ha, which I feel like really was the first thing that put her on my map. But then there's other just, like, things where I'm like, I don't think Noah had anything to do with them. I just think she, like, wanted to be in the film industry, and she probably just was like, yeah, I'll play the best friend. Like, the silly best friend. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like, so that obviously that part of her career is, like, very different from Christopher Nolan's. But it is, like, I just think it's wild because I think Greta Gerwig is now almost like a household name, at least with, like, people our age, women from, like, 20 to 40, like, all just, like, know her name now, which is kind of what happened to Nolan when he made Batman Begins. And it kind of feels like she's going on the same route. Like, it was just announced that she's doing all the Narnia films that are coming out. She's directing them. So it's like, that's, like, literally, like, what Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises were. I'm not going to say anything because, like, what if she makes the Dark Knight of Narnia movies? You know, what if it's just, like, an amazing chronicle of all these super deep morals we didn't know that Narnia had? I don't know. But it's going down this very commercial path that Christopher Nolan also went down.
I don't doubt her in any way. I would give my life for Greta. But this seems like an odd move. And it's with Netflix, which, like, obviously Barbie was with huge, like, Warner Brothers, Mattel. But to me, Greta just doesn't seem like a remake kind of person. This just feels like she saw a big opportunity, I guess, or something to, like, maybe she wanted to do a remake so she could put her own spin on it. But to me, it just feels so out of character. I don't know.
It wasn't until a couple days ago when I was thinking about this podcast when I started to think about the fact that her second movie, the movie that I find to be her best, is Little Women, which is adapted from a novel and has already been told in a movie in, like, the 90s.
True.
And so I was like, I didn't even put that, because, like, it came out before I was born, I think. It was not part of, like, the cultural fabric that I know, but, like, obviously Narnia is part of the cultural fabric that we know because it came out when we grew up. So I think we have a more visceral reaction to it, the same way people 10 years older than us probably had to her directing Little Women. So because of that, I'm like, we'll see. I've had nothing but great times at her movies. I think Barbie is my least favorite of her 3 movies, and I had a ball.
Yeah, that is crazy to hear. I think that is wild. I feel like I have to rewatch because Lady Bird was such, like, a close-to-home movie for me. Like, you know, her relationship with her mother being, like, went to, like, private Catholic school and, like, went through this, like, rebellious phase. Like, I felt like, to me, I was, like, looking in a mirror.
Oh, wow.
And it was almost like too much. I was like, I dyed my hair. I had a shitty boyfriend. Like, all of these things. I'm like watching myself on the screen. I didn't throw myself out of a car. I did break my arm and get a pink cast. So I was like up there.
Whoa. Look, this is pretty nuts.
It's crazy. And so that I haven't rewatched because it was like such she has a way of pulling anyone's heartstrings. But like, seeing myself up there, I was like, this is crazy. It was really, so it's so beautiful. She has such a way of just like, just finding something in you, no matter who it is, and just like touching it in a way. And I love her. Maybe if I rewatched Little Women and Lady Bird, Barbie would move down. But I think just like the movie watching experience for me, like, shot it to the top.
Yeah, and that's fair because I think the theatrical experience of watching any movie like adds a lot to it. I'm just gonna say this, and then I'm not gonna hear your response, but that's how I feel about Top Gun Maverick. So let's move on. And
boo, tomato.
Did you hear rumors about what this movie almost was? I'm sure you have, but like this movie, when it was first being developed, was an Amy Schumer vehicle.
In what world would Amy Schumer play? I know, I heard this, and I didn't know if it was Amy Schumer being Amy Schumer and, like, being annoying and ruining things, but I don't understand. What could it have been? Where would she have taken it? Also, I
think it would have been a much more obvious body positivity movie, where it's, like, kind of what people were wanting Barbie to be 10 years ago, like, in terms of, like, the doll, when they were like, let's get some, like, body positive Barbie out there. Which is not to say that's, like, not important and, like, not a good angle, honestly. But, like, thank God also, because Amy Schumer has so much kind of cultural baggage at this point that, like, we just didn't need that.
It wouldn't have done as well in the box office, that's for sure. Was Mattel backing it at that point still?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Greta?
I have no idea.
I wonder if Greta was on it at that point. Like, I wonder how it would have been marketed differently if it was that kind of movie. I feel like the marketing played a huge role in this movie. Like, everyone was hyping it up. I don't remember the last time I, like, literally put it into my calendar the day that a movie was coming out and, like, made a point to get tickets a month beforehand because I knew it was going to be so crazy. Like, thinking about what outfit I was going to wear. Like, I don't think it would have happened if this marketing wasn't so crazy. And, like, I don't think Amy Schumer would have inspired as much, like, excitement in a way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that they would have had the confidence to play it the same day as Oppenheimer, which now, looking back at it, is wild considering that it almost doubled what Oppenheimer made. So, props to Margot Robbie, who I want to talk about next. This morning, started to skip through scenes of The Wolf of Wall Street, which came out 10 years ago and was the first time she was like, I think she might have been an actress before, like she was in other small parts, but I think this is like obviously the first time that she was introduced to the world. She simultaneously was like, holy shit, that's a really good actress, and holy shit, that might be the most beautiful woman I've ever laid my eyes on. So I think it was like, she started out as like this actress who had like, she was really good in the movie, but I don't think anyone was talking about that. Like, looking back at her scenes today, I was like, she's amazing in this movie. She's sexy, and she's smart, and by the end of the movie, you are completely rooting for her. Despite this being a, like, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jordan Belfort is the worst movie. And then seeing what her career has, like, done, where she's done a lot of really cool roles. She obviously did, like, the whole Suicide Squad DC thing, where she's Harley Quinn in, like, 2 movies. Don't need to get into that, but like, you know, she did like the whole superhero thing, which is probably good for her career in terms of like money and stuff. But she also did like a lot of cool roles where she worked with good directors, worked with good actors. She did I, Tonya, which was like kind of like her like give me an Oscar role. She didn't get an Oscar, and now she does this 10 years after Wolf of Wall Street, and it feels like the pinnacle of like anyone's career. Like it's such a shining star for somebody. Like I think like it's probably one of the things that's going to age the best about this is looking back and being like, remember when Margot Robbie like became a international superstar overnight? Like I just think it's awesome that she's having this moment, and she produced the movie, which is like even cooler.
Yeah, I think that is what is so interesting too. Like, when you listen to Greta talk about the movie, she gives all the props to Margot, like every single time. Like she was only set to write the movie, and then once she wrote it, her and Noah wrote it, she was like, I think I could do great things with this script, and I think I have a great vision. I know the people I want to work with. I just have to get Margot's okay. So like Margot was the one who like made this movie what it was, which is so incredible. Like not only is she the face, she's stereotypical Barbie, and who else could play her? Like the fact that we hear about Amy Schumer, I'm just like, Margot Robbie is Barbie. She's so talented. And it's not just her looks. I think like with Wolf of Wall Street, a lot of people, like you said, were like more so just talking about like the one scene where they're like on the floor, and that's just like became like a Halloween costume and like a meme on the internet and things, and so that's how people saw her. But she's just so much more, and I think that's also like the essence of Barbie. So it's just like it's so cool that she gets to be the face of it all.
Totally agree. I mean, they even make a joke about it in the movie where Helen Mirren as the narrator is like, as a narrator is like, you don't. Or notes to the producers like don't cast Margot Robbie in this role if you are to not look perfect. This easily like I think the script is great in this movie, but I think like to pull off the main role of Barbie, which is somebody who like is Barbie and then slowly becomes a human. Like if you look at the beginning and the end of the movie, it's like sure that's easy. The whole unraveling in the middle, there's funny parts to it where she's on the floor and she's like crying and the whole Helen Mirren narration, but there's also parts to it where she's like has to be like kind of crazy, and I think she plays crazy really well. Like I think Harley Quinn is like the stereotype crazy girl role, but like she does it in Barbie, and it's like nuanced to the point where you don't even think about it. You're just like, yeah, that's what Barbie unraveling would look like. Yeah, I just think it's underrated. Which, wow, I'm just like crazy at these segues. These segues, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that she will be nominated. Hear me out. She will be nominated for an Oscar, and she most definitely will not win. Like I just think there's no way she's gonna win the Oscar.
I love this movie so much. I was like, which ones won't they be nominated for? Like, I think best picture. I don't know. Right?
I think it will. I think it will be nominated. Yeah. It's hard to ignore it. I think also people in the Academy love Greta Gerwig, at least based on her last two movies being like pretty much like widely celebrated and nominated. I think there's 10 slots for Best Picture, and we've already seen 2 movies get slotted for 2024 because of the strikes.
Yeah.
The Screen Actors Guild strikes, which is Dune Part 2, which I'm so sad about because I loved Dune, and I was... I texted Burva, side note, I was like, dude, like, oh my gosh, Dune Part 2, it's not coming out this year. And he just texted, he's a huge Dune fan, I think bigger than me, and he was so nonchalant about it. He was like, honestly good, like, I don't think I'm prepared to watch Dune Part 2 yet. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I am either. I think that's a good move. I didn't realize it was going to come out in October, which is like, that's a little soon. It's a little soon for...
This October?
Yeah, it was going to. Now it's coming out in March, but I thought it was going to be like a late November release, like a holiday season thing. That movie and Challengers,
Zendaya.
both starring Zendaya, are both moving to 2024. So I think a couple movies that like, and who knows, like there might be more. So I think there's a couple movies that might have been Best Picture nominees that are now clearly not going to be. It gives a movie like Barbie an even better shot. And if we're talking like solely on its how credible it is as a Best Picture nominee, then of course it should be there. But we both like the Oscars enough to not be so hopeful.
Yeah. So I think Best Picture, it could be up there. Best Director, I would love if Greta won. I think it's actually like a shoo-in for set design. I feel like
if it doesn't win set design, I would be a little disappointed because I think one of the best parts about the movie was Barbieland and everything that they did with it. So much so that I was a little upset that we spent so much time not in Barbieland.
Yeah, I agree. I think just everything about it was so meticulous. It was probably the most meticulous aspect of the entire thing, where you have all of these details. You cause a worldwide shortage of pink paint because of this one movie that's happening.
Is that true?
So, yeah. Pink paint shortage. Am I lying? I'm pretty sure that's true.
No. I don't want you to look this up because this is now truth in my mind.
The fact that there was just no CGI, and even when they're like traveling between worlds, it's still just like paint, you know? I love it. I think if anyone else wins, it will be a travesty, and I will riot. And I'll still watch the Oscars the following year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. I love to hate watch the Oscars. Quick note on the set designer, Sarah Greenwood and Katie Spencer. I believe they're a team, but I don't see them listed as a team. Some of the movies that they've worked on, and some of these that they've been nominated for, but they've never won an Oscar. Pretty much all of the Joe Wright movies. So Pride and Prejudice, Anna Karenina, Atonement, Darkest Hour, which was the Winston Churchill movie starring Gary Oldman, and Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes starring Robert Downey Jr., which I love. That's one of my favorite movies. And the worst one that they worked on is probably the Beauty and the Beast live action remake, which honestly, I'm sure the set design was probably the best part of that movie. So they're kind of awesome. So I want them to win. I want them to get their laurels, because this is it might not even be their best work, but it was just so much fun to be around. I just wanted to see more. I was take me to the kitchen, take me to the bedroom. I just want to hang out a little bit.
I want a Mojo Dojo Casa house of my own. I really do. I think that's what Greta said in an interview, was she saw Anna Karenina and she was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I want it to be sort of watching a play on the film screen, I want it to feel like you're inside of it, but also Barbieland feels exciting and fun, but it also kind of feels claustrophobic, you're on a set that you can't leave, and to kind of give that feel of every day is the exact same day, and until Barbie gets flat feet, she doesn't even realize, and then she starts feeling the all of the things of her deprogramming kind of come in, and the set sort of also plays a role in that, where she's just at the beach, or she's just at Mojo Dojo Casa House, pre-Mojo Dojo Casa House. There's only so many places she can go. Yeah.
I never put that together. That's a really cool way to think about it. I just saw on Wikipedia that they made Barbie 23% larger than the items around her, or proportionally than she would normally be. So it's supposed to feel, because apparently the joke was that when you're playing with the Barbie dollhouse, Barbie's proportionally way too large for anything around her. So that was kind of the whole vibe of it, which I just think that's hilarious. So yeah, I agree. Lots of thought went into this, clearly.
That's such a great point. I love that everything is it's her life, and you're seeing Margot Robbie, so it feels like it's a real person, but then it's all these gags where it's she turns on the shower and clearly she's feeling water, but there's no water, and then she's sipping something, there's no drink in there, you know what I mean? And then she just floats down to her car because Barbies don't walk down the stairs. We just put them in the cars and then they go. And then she's driving the car and she doesn't have to steer it. She turns around to wave to everybody. She waves at the lady in the airplane.
That's funny. I didn't even put that together when I watched it. That's actually pretty great.
It's so good. It's so, just little things like that where it's everything was so thought out. Barbie is being played with, and so she doesn't have to drive the car. She doesn't have to fly the airplane. She doesn't have to walk down the stairs. She's just Barbie. Right.
Yeah. I love that. I wanted to also shout out, on the same vibe of set design, was the costume design. Jacqueline Duran is the costume designer. Also worked on Anna Karenina. And funnily enough, Jacqueline Duran did win an Oscar for Anna Karenina. She also won an Oscar for Little Women.
Yeah. I read that earlier. That's so cool.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe she'll win it again. Who knows? A lot of fun costumes in this one. That'd be a cool legacy.
all of them were real Barbie outfits. And, like,
Yeah.
apparently when he was doing that scene, he couldn't remember all of the extravagant names for them. So there was someone, like, behind the column, like, pretty paisley palazzo pants. And that's when he would, like, throw them and yell that. So it's just like, oh, it's so funny. All those little things.
Incredible. Speaking of which, the last person who worked on this movie that I do want to talk about before we talk about some, like, more kind of, like, not categories, but, you know, start to get into the weeds of the movie, is who you just mentioned, Ryan Gosling, a.k.a. Ken. He, first of all, I remember a year ago when the trailer came out, or, like, there was stuff coming out about the movie, and TikTok and just social media in general was like, why does Ryan Gosling look so weird in the trailer? He's too old to play Ken. This doesn't make any sense. To which I responded, clearly the only Ryan Gosling movie you've ever seen is The Notebook. Because shut up, this is probably one of the funniest actors working in Hollywood today. Everything he's in is either really great or really funny. And he is a brilliant actor. And he's also just the perfect... He's so hot. And then when you see him act, you forget that, like, he's also one of the funniest people you will ever see on screen. Which is the exact... What else would you want from Ken? I thought it was perfect casting, and I loved him in this movie. He got a lot of the comic relief, and Margot Robbie obviously had to do more of the heavy lifting of the acting of the whole, you know, becoming a human, you know, that whole thing. And he kind of just got to be Ken the entire time. But my God, he was so fantastic. I just loved him the entire movie.
I don't think that anyone could have played Ken as well as he did. Like, I agree with you. I'm not on TikTok, so I didn't see any of the flack for him, but he has range. He's been booked in busy since The Notebook when he was no one, and he's been in a movie. He's been in a ton of movies all the time, and it's always different. Like, he can play a really scary man who's, like, doesn't say any words in, like, Drive. He just, like, beats someone to death and then makes out with a girl in an elevator. And then he can be somebody who's, like, Noah in The Notebook, or even I Know You Really Liked The Good Guys. He had a hilarious...
The nice guys.
Oh, excuse me. The nice guys. The nice guys. He was so funny in that.
Yes.
His confidence shines on screen. Like, he is a movie star. Everyone likes to talk about, we don't have movie stars anymore. Here is Ryan Gosling. He is the moment. He is never too old. They tanned his whole body. They bleached his hair. They, of course he has abs, but I know that they contoured his abs on there as well. They were so funny looking. And just, like, the fact that he's able to make fun of himself and still have this, like, air of confidence and this comedic timing, his improv is just, it's so funny. And it's so, like, Ken's kind of an asshole for most of this movie. And then you love him, though, because he just has this air about him that's, like, he's kind of a himbo, but he's just kind of trying to find himself. And he's Ryan Gosling. How can you hate Ryan Gosling? He's awesome.
I agree. He's Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling has this, like, self-awareness about him. Like, even in his, like, real kind of roles, like, even in La La Land, there's moments where, like, he doesn't do this. I mean, he does this once in the movie when it's, like, a thing. But you could imagine him being in, like, the office and looking at the camera with just, like, the way he reacts to the world around him and things happening. And I think you kind of need somebody in that role as Ken who, like, does that, but and like knows the movie he's in really well. And I think about what if they put Simu Liu in the main Ken role, for example, and Ryan Gosling just wasn't in the movie, and there was another person in the Simu Liu role. How different that would have been, where it would have felt like like he knows he's playing this up and it's supposed to be funny. But, like, Ryan Gosling as Ken was, like, like, you're like, that's Ken. Like, he's such an idiot. Yeah. He's such an idiot. I don't know. It's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to play an idiot, but you have to, like, be an idiot. And Ryan Gosling knows what that takes what it's supposed to look like on camera. I don't know.
Yeah. No, and he's fully committing to the bit. And that's respectable. Even in these interviews afterwards, red carpet appearances, he is ridiculous. he's acting like the himbo that we know and love. And I love a commitment to a bit when it's not overdone and it's not cheesy. It's just like perfectly even in a way.
Love him. There's talks of, we didn't talk about him during the Oscars, but there's conversation about him getting a supporting actor nomination, which I actually think, like, obviously we are so early on. Usually how these things go is like, if the movie is respected and gonna do well at the Oscars, there will be a supporting actor nomination despite the genre. But usually a role that is comedic will never win. Like, Jamie Lee Curtis winning was the outlier. And so maybe it'll happen again. But I think it's interesting to see that, like, there's a lot of talk about him getting an Oscar. More than Margot Robbie, which I think is just funny, but also how supporting actor stuff goes. Like, I can't think of an example right now. But, like, I just rewatched The Departed because it got on Netflix. I rewatched it twice, actually, which is a whole other thing. But Mark Wahlberg got a supporting actor nomination for that movie, which is so funny. Like, he has, like, 5 scenes, and he's hilarious in each one, but it's also absurd to think that he's the only actor from that movie who got a nomination. And I think it's, like, Leonardo DiCaprio's greatest role, and he wasn't even nominated for that movie.
That is ridiculous. That's actually the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Agreed, but I think it's, like, crazy how, like, obviously that movie won Best Picture and Best Director for a handful of reasons, but, like, Mark Wahlberg just slides in as a nomination. So, like, that feels like where Ryan Gosling can kind of slide in, where when you look back on it, you'll be like, Barbie may not have performed that well at the Oscars. Remember when Ryan Gosling almost got Best Supporting Actor? And, like, maybe he should have won it? I think that might be the conversation around that performance. I think it was great. It'll be remembered as, like, a highlight of 2023 is, like, him as Ken.
I think for me, it definitely is a memorable performance, and I loved him in it. I don't know if the role itself, for me, is enough for a win. Like, I don't know
if he wins, it takes away from the movie. It's one of those things, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, look, I love Top Gun Maverick, but if it won Best Picture, even I would have been like, damn, you know? Like,
yeah, me too. Bad.
Oh, man. every time you come on the pod, I'm talking about that movie. Okay.
I will call it bad every time.
I have a couple, like, rewatchables-esque categories I sent you. Let's start with Best Scene. So, I thought of a couple that I wanted to just shout out. I'm not going to say which one's my personal favorite. The opening scene. The 2001 A Space Odyssey. You know, yes, exactly. The baby's just smashing the dolls. Perfect. I also didn't realize that's the first Barbie outfit that Barbie was ever released in, was that swimsuit outfit that Margot Robbie was wearing.
I think Helen Mirren says that. Like, she started off as a lady in a bathing suit, but she's so much more. There
you go.
Yeah.
So much more. That was just really funny. I laughed. I'd seen that in the trailer we all had, and I still laughed out loud. I was like, this is good.
Yeah.
This is like what this movie is going to be, is this.
Them releasing that as the first teaser was probably the smartest thing they could have done.
Oh my gosh. Wait, can we talk about the promotion a little bit more? Because you talking about the trailers, before we get into Best Scene, it's really not that deep of a conversation. I just hate when trailers give away too much. And the best thing, like, my 2023 most anticipated pod earlier this year, Barbie was number 1 on my draft pick. I didn't get the pick, but, like, the biggest part of what I was looking forward to was the fact that I didn't know anything. Like, we only knew this crazy scene where Margot Robbie is standing there and she's 50 feet tall. And then I went to the movies a couple times in, like, May and June. And specifically when I saw Mission Impossible, like, 2 weeks before Barbie and Oppenheimer came out. I saw the I'm Just Ken song because it was a trailer. And at the same time, like, they had, like, 6 trailers released, and this was probably one of the later ones. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is so great and so funny. But I was pissed because I was like, I wish I didn't know that this existed. Because I was going to see it the third day it came out. Like, I wasn't going to get it spoiled for me. The movie spoiled it for me. So I was just like, I think the promotion was great, but just a personal gripe. It's just like, don't show me what is clearly one of the best parts of this movie. It's this, like, 6-minute long musical number. Don't show me that. I don't need to see it. I'm going to love it if I just get to go. I don't know. Also, like, it went viral on TikTok day 2. So, like, the world would have known about it even if they never saw the movie.
Yeah, I get that too. I think the teaser was, that's why the teaser was so perfect, because you knew it was Barbie. There's Margot Robbie, but clearly it's not a normal teaser. Like, it's like makes it so clear that this is going to be something completely different. These kids are beating these dolls to shit. Like, it's going to be so cool and different and so Greta. And then they come out with the first trailer. And I actually was nervous after the first trailer dropped, because I was like, is it just going to be about Barbie going to the real world? Like, I do not care. That sounds dumb. I don't want this to just be like a formulaic, like, she goes on an adventure and learns about herself. Like, I was so disappointed when that first trailer came out. I didn't see the one you're talking about. But then I was like, I gotta go see it just to see if it lives up to the hype.
It's funny you say that, because I never had that thought. Like, once I knew Greta Gerwig was doing this, I was like, it's not gonna be just that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But I don't think most people knew Greta Gerwig or like understood what that meant.
I will, again, never doubt Greta.
Yeah.
But I think it was that she hadn't, or at least I didn't seek out anything where she was talking about it. And I knew that it was being made by Mattel. And so I didn't have any of the context of her saying like, oh, they kind of gave me like creative reins. They kind of let me do whatever the fuck I wanted. And that probably would have given me a little more hope. But I think I was just like, oh, it's a big blockbuster. Like, yeah, Greta's done these bigger movies, but they still have been kind of like, they haven't really been, I would say, like, super zeitgeisty. Like, what man is going to see Little Women besides you? And, like, looking to enjoy it.
Listen, that movie taught me two things. One, I have a crush on Saoirse Ronan. That was the first time where I was like, I think, like, if I met her, I think I would just propose her on the spot. I think she's just the perfect woman. Mm. And two, I think I'm in love with Timothée Chalamet. I'm so blown away. But anyway, yes, Little Women. Fucking go see the movie if you haven't seen it.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to best scene. So, okay, the first scene nominated. The opening dance scene.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
Looking good, Barbie.
Thanks, Ken.
Super fun.
Yeah, the Dua Lipa Dance
the Dua
the
Lipa
Night
song that I have listened to every day for the last 2.5 weeks, maybe.
I would like to add to that, the soundtrack is in the official Barbie playlist on Spotify. Literally have been listening to it since the moment I stepped out of the theater. But I think I will counter that dance scene, which I think the like dual Lizzo scenes are phenomenal. Like the like good Lizzo song and then the bad Lizzo song. That is like incredible. I feel
You're
like
gonna have to expand on this because I don't know what you're talking about.
I was looking at your face and you didn't. There was no ounce of recognition. So I could sing the whole song. So when she...
Go ahead. The listeners are waiting.
You're just going to play the clip over anyway. But it's before she starts having thoughts of death. So it's like the Pink song where it's like, P, pretty, I, intelligent, N, never sad, K, cool. That. Yeah. And then once she starts, she is like after the Dua Lipa dance scene and she goes to bed and like every night is girls' night. And she wakes up the next morning groggy, her shower's cold, her waffles burnt, her milk is sour. That Pink song by Lizzo is playing again, but like dark. Like I think the funniest part of it is like at the end, I don't remember P-I or N, but K is just K, death. And that's like, it's like a perfect sort of like switch, I feel like. It was a really good parallel.
Yes, I thought it was really funny. It also was like quick, like it didn't waste a beat.
Yeah.
It was kind of like back-to-back jokes / fun times. Okay, good call. My next nominee is the Kate McKinnon Weird Barbie intro, where she has to go see Weird Barbie and the Matrix choice, and it was like, no, pick this. You have to pick this one. Otherwise, we don't have a story. You have to pick this one.
The first one, the heel. Yeah.
The heel. Yeah,
so good. Oh, and she's like, she pulls down her map and she's like, you have to go to, what is it? The state of Los Angeles in like the country of California.
Yeah.
And she's like explaining the way that she has to get there. Kate McKinnon is so hilarious. She was perfectly cast for that one.
Yeah, I didn't know she was going to be in this, so seeing her was really pleasant, and I felt like I was in good hands. Like it was seeing a comedy rock star in the Barbieland and being like, oh, all right, we're good, we're gonna get some laughs in, no matter what. My next one, and like I'm sure there are ones that we could shout out between these because I'm kind of skipping big chunks of the movie. Yeah. But the next big one for me was meeting the young girl. I forgot her name, the character's name, but meeting Sasha at school. And learning what Gen Z feels about Barbie and Margot Robbie crying. I think that was like simultaneously like really funny and well written, but also just like needed. Yeah. In this story, because if without this story, it feels without that scene, this story feels tone deaf. Like you don't like. Are you not going to talk about the fact that nobody thinks Barbie's cool anymore? Yeah. Into the next scene of jumping into the car and realizing that the mom is the one that she has to save. That whole, like, it was like a 10-15 minute sequence of just like, oh, okay, this movie is going in a really cool direction. And I think one of the most underrated aspects of it, like, everyone's talking about, I won't say that, but everyone's talking about other aspects of the movie that I'm going to shout out very soon. But I think, like, as a storytelling device, like, choosing it being about the mom is, like, of course it's about the mom. This makes too much sense. I loved all of that.
I love it. And then upon second rewatch, when they do the first montage of like Barbie having these visions of the girl who's playing with her, like, of course it's focusing on the little girl, but you always see she's interacting with someone or she's hugging someone. And like, I loved being able to pick up on that on the second time that I watched it around. And then just like, America Ferrera like really pulls on the heartstrings in those scenes. Like, it just really is so hard to be a mom to a kid who's just like a little piece of shit. And we all are. We're all mean to our moms at some point in our lives. Right. And it just like is like, oh God, give her a break.
Yeah, we'll talk about America Ferrera shortly. I think honestly though, in the real world, when I look back on the movie, and granted I only saw it once, but like thinking about like what were the real highlights for me, there's a lot that goes on in the real world, but the two real things that jump out to me were just that I just mentioned, and not even a scene, but just a moment of Ken learning about the patriarchy, and like, him just going on like a tangent of bits. Like it just cuts to him and there's a laugh, and then it cuts back to Margot Robbie advancing the story, and then it's Ken getting a laugh, which I think in the moment worked really well. But probably the only two parts of the real world that really worked for me. I don't want to talk about Will Ferrell and all of that stuff yet, because we're going to talk about that in another category.
I want to add two real-world scenes that I really enjoyed.
Go for it.
One that really started the waterworks both times I saw it was obviously the scene where she had just been, like, yelled at by Sasha. She's so broken down. She goes and she sits at the bus stop. And she, like, looks to her right, and there's this older woman sitting there, and the older woman looks back, and Margot Robbie in just this, like, beautiful scene of just, like, I don't know, just beauty. I don't know, and just being like, you're beautiful. And she goes, I know it. And the waterworks just flow, because it's not something you're expecting, and it's in there just to be in there. It doesn't further the plot. It just is the whole point. It's just
I was gonna say I'd argue that because of the way the movie ends, it does advance the plot, because it's the first time Barbie sees a human being more beautiful and perfect than she is, and it takes the form of an old woman. I was gonna shout this out for best quote, but we can do this now. Do you know who that woman is?
I looked it up. So people on the internet were saying that it was the real Barbara, but that's not true.
But real Barbara's long dead, I think. Sorry. I said that so matter-of-factly. Yeah, real Barbara's not in this movie.
That woman is Anne Roth. Would you like to explain to the lovely listeners who that
Yes,
is?
I was going to shout out two things about her. One is that she's from Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
And she won 2 Oscars. She's a legendary costume designer. So she won Oscars for The English Patient and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 2020, which is kind of wild. Because she's old. She's 91 years old.
Yeah, I think that's what Greta was like. I wanted someone who was 90, which I don't remember why she said that, but
That's a little
she
weird.
did.
90 or nothing?
Oh, yeah.
It's my
Oh my
89th
gosh.
birthday in August. Can we just...
Yeah.
Nope. Sorry.
Nope. Cut. Get out of here.
Yeah. No, I agree. I was going to talk about in the best quote. I really like that move. I think that scene, it was really sweet in the moment. And I was like, oh, that's cute. And then upon reflection, looking at what the movie was saying and what it ended up being about, so that it fits really well. I think it was a really good stroke of just like cute screenwriting that like is disguised as this like one-off moment, and that it actually does kind of show you the whole movie and what it's actually trying to tell you. So yeah,
and
big fan.
I know that they, like, Warner Brothers or Mattel or somebody was like, you have to cut the scene. Like, the movie's long. This adds nothing. Just cut the scene. And Greta's like, no. If you don't let me put this scene in the movie, I walk.
Yeah,
I'm
she
like,
said something along the lines of, if you cut this scene, I don't know what this movie is about.
yeah.
Which is brilliant. And I didn't understand that when I first read that, and then thinking about it, I was like, she was so right. Well, of course she was right, because she made the
so
movie. But
right.
yeah, I get it.
She's a genius, and she deserves it all, and I love her.
Have you ever sent a celebrity a letter? Like, DMs don't count. Like, have you sent fan mail before? Did I just unlock something for you? Liv is covering her eyes.
I was so embarrassed. Yes, I have.
Because the way you're talking about Greta Gerwig, I'm like, if you were 10 years old right now when this movie came out, like, you would be writing letters to Greta Gerwig.
I might as well write her a letter now. I one time wrote Miley Cyrus a letter, and this is so mean. My brother, who's 3 years older than me, found it and showed it to all his friends. And they made fun of me to my face, and so I never wrote another letter.
No, that's tough. So
know.
you're saying you wrote like a handwritten letter, not an email?
Yeah, on loose leaf paper. Dear Miley, you are like my hero, or something like that. I just talked about how she was Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus and how that was really cool.
Did you think her last name was Stewart, or did you know it was Cyrus?
I didn't address her last name.
I just think it's funny if you were like, "Dear Miss Stewart, like, thank you for your service, and I wish you luck in your double identity journey that I'm watching every week on Hannah Montana."
Literally, and I think I had just seen the Hannah Montana movie, which was fantastic.
Yeah, we'll do a podcast about that's the next episode. Actually, is it's gonna be me singing The Climb for 4 minutes, and then it's gonna be just 2 hours about the Hannah Montana.
Don't even joke about it. I will be here.
I do want to do a Disney Channel original movie draft, but anyway, yeah, that's a first round pick on that draft. Anyway, I digress about letters. I just thought that was really funny. Okay, best scene, other nominees. I'm skipping a lot of like the return to Barbieland stuff, but I'm just gonna cut right to the America Ferrera speech that takes place once they understand the whole Mojo Dojo Casa House thing, and into the Barbies basically like appealing to the Kens, or rather first explaining feminism, really, first grade feminism to Barbies, and then being like, oh,
the plight of women.
And I just loved. I'll combine those. So I'll combine the America Ferrera speech and kind of the transition into like getting the Avengers assembled of like all the Barbies.
In their little pink suits. I love their little pink jumpsuits. I want one so bad.
I loved
love
all
it.
of that.
What did you think about the speech? I feel like that is a topic of conversation.
Yeah,
what did you think about
I'll say what I'm going to say, but then there's the conversation that TikTok's having, or just, social media in general, and we'll talk about that in another category, just social media and how they have been talking about this movie. But I have seen Greta Gerwig's other movies, and I love them. And so when America Ferrera was giving the speech, all I could think about in the theater was Saoirse Ronan in Little Women.
Me too.
Yeah, like a 40-second speech in Little Women about women are so much more than marriage. And that in that movie, I think that worked better than the America Ferrera speech worked in Barbie. Because that movie is not a movie that is on the nose and in your face. It's a it's a novel, and it's cute, and you're watching these sisters go through life, and then you have this moment that's just like, yes, it's on the nose, but it's also just kind of like hit what needed to be said. In Barbie, I was thinking about Saoirse Ronan, but I wasn't upset. I wasn't thinking that this was bad. I was like, this is good. It was also the moment that I was like, this is a kid's movie, and this needs to be, if you want to talk about these topics and subjects that maybe we understand more than others, you have to hit it on the nose, and you have to do it in a way that works. And I think it did. It was a great delivery. America Ferrera went off, and not only was it just this one-off moment of like, here's this heavy-handed speech, but they use it in the plot of being like, you have to make it heavy-handed because Barbies don't know this shit, and then they made it funny, and I was like, this is a great way to introduce this whole thing. So yeah, it worked great for me. I think what we've talked about in the past before, but correct me if I'm off base, but a lot of people online are saying that it was too basic, and the things that she's saying in the speech are not they're just shallow. It's like very like first grade feminism, and like you don't need to explain all of that. Like, that's understood. Which do I say, like, first of all, no, it isn't. Second of all, more importantly, like, you're talking about something in a movie outside of the movie. Like, that's not how movies work.
Yeah.
This is not a documentary. This is not This is not something you're watching in a classroom. Like, we're watching a movie about Barbie, and this is
about a doll.
About a doll. And a character in that movie explaining to a doll what it is to be a woman. And to the haters, I basically say, like, what would you have done? Because I think that worked really well for me. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I agree on all accounts. I think, of course, if we didn't get the Little Women speech, I think this would have worked tenfold for me. Sure. The Little Women speech just really, it just, again, strikes a chord. It's done so well. Saoirse's delivery is so powerful. But I agree. I think this was exactly what this moment needed. I know exactly. Where else would you have gone with that? You couldn't have shown them, or like literally narratively, what else could you have done? I don't know. So I think to say it's too basic is to miss the whole point of the movie, and to miss the whole story. Barbie is literally face first on the ground because she doesn't think she's pretty enough. She's stereotypical Barbie, so she doesn't have a purpose. She's not Dr. Barbie. She's not Nobel Prize winner Barbie. She's not President Barbie. She has no other purpose, and that's the whole point that America Ferrera is saying, is like, no matter what kind of Barbie you are, no matter what woman you are, no matter what you bring to the table, this system says you are never enough. That is the point. And is that not true anymore? Like, it obviously is still true. So saying that it's too basic, for me, doesn't land. And it just feels like over-woke social media, little people on their phones, blah, 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 blah. I'm not interested. And I don't take that to mean anything.
There is an argument you could make to not liking the movie that is outside of that speech, which is, if you're not going to enjoy a movie about like modern day white feminism, liberal feminism, if that's not your thing, then like, you didn't like the movie. You didn't not like the speech. You didn't like the movie.
Yeah.
And you're basically trying to make the speech the whole thing. It's like, just say you didn't like the movie and move on. Like, it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's trying to just pick out that one moment as, like, not serving the story is just, I think, not fair. But okay, I'm glad we agree on that.
I think this, maybe I should save it for favorite quotes. Maybe I'll save it for favorite quotes, but it has to do with, like, deprogramming the Barbies and, like, appealing to the men. There are just so many good moments in appealing to the men. It's so funny.
I had a couple of those in best quote and a couple in greatest pop culture reference, so let's hold off on that. I'm skipping over all of the appealing to Ken stuff. I'm jumping right to, for best scene, I'm jumping right to I'm Just Ken.
All my life been so polite, but I'll sleep alone tonight. 'Cause I'm just Ken, anywhere else I'd be a 10. Is it my destiny to live and die a life of blonde fragility? I'm just Ken, where I see love, she sees a friend. What will it take for her to see the man behind the tent and fight for me?
The song, which is simultaneously, like, really funny, and also got into this territory, and I don't know if you felt this. Have you seen Singing in the Rain?
I actually haven't.
It's not that reminiscent of it. It's not like, I don't think it's really trying to call to it. But there's a moment, this isn't really spoiling anything, but there's a moment in Singing in the Rain where there's, like, this, like, kind of, like, climactic musical number that takes place in this, like, fantastical dreamland that the main character is, I guess, thinking up. And it's called Back in La La Land, if you've seen La La Land, like, towards the end of the movie, they're doing all that. That's what that's referencing. And I thought that this movie was trying to do something like that, because in Singing in the Rain, it, like, there's a dream sequence, and then it goes on for, like, 17 minutes. Like, it's a long dream sequence. And, like, 4 minutes into the I'm Just Ken song, I was like, are we going to be sitting here for 12 minutes listening to this song? Like, when they go into the whole black shirt thing, I was like, what is going on here? Yeah. And I think that there's been a couple of times in, like, mainstream movies that I have felt not the presence, but the essence of Bollywood. Top Gun Maverick as a film was Bollywood. Like, that is literally the definition of Bollywood, where, like, you're like, no one's going to die and everyone's going to have a good time. Oh yeah, and everyone's hot. This was kind of like the same way, where it was like a musical number. We're changing up the setting in the wardrobe just because we can, and you're going to love it. And you know what? I loved it. I'm Just Ken was so much fun. And also just, like, we had the dance sequence in the beginning of the movie, but I was kind of hoping to see more, and so this is what they gave us, and I was like, yes, if they had 4 more in there, I would have loved all of them, I'm sure. But yeah, I was just a big fan.
I think I do love the fact that Ken is also the only one who, like, it's not really a musical, but there's so many musical numbers, and obviously a lot of the music is, like, directly related to the narrative. Ken is the only one who gets his, like, own song where he sings to the audience. And I just think that's so funny. Yeah. And, like, it's so good. It's everything. I think also, again, on rewatch, I was like, oh, cool, dance scene. I don't know why, but that's fine. But then when you rewatch it, when he's discovering patriarchy, he sees a scene from Grease. So that's why that Grease aspect is in there. He sees a scene from Singing in the Rain.
God.
So that's why that aspect's in there.
That's
so
nuts.
It, like, makes sense. It's not just, like, randomly in there. He, like, that's his idea of, like, being Ken, being a man.
Wow, I can't believe there was a sequence of Singing in the Rain in there. That's because I thought I was just like, oh, like, this is just me having seen, like, 4 musicals in my life, but, like, no, it turns out I was right on this one.
No,
that's
you were.
Good. Wow, that's sick.
Yeah.
Okay, that's tough. I didn't rewatch this movie on Sunday, which was National Cinema Day, and it was because I was just, like, kind of just, like, feeling like a homebody. I know. The movie I showed you, I had bought the ticket for Barbie, and then I refunded it like an hour before, and I was like, I can't leave the house. But now I'm like, oh, maybe I should have gone just to catch some of this stuff, because that's crazy. Wow, good. Did you catch that on your rewatch?
Just the rewatch. I didn't notice it the first time around.
Okay, and then really, this isn't a scene, but the moment where he says "sublime," I just wanted to like that whole like 10-second. Like it's not really a quote, it's not really a scene, but it's sublime. And then I just have like the ending with the montage into the white background. As just I think I've told you this before. It probably for me like I've kind of reflected on why it maybe didn't work for me. There's two reasons. One of which I'll talk about later in another category, but I think the reason I was a little out of the movie was because right before it was just like with Will Ferrell's character coming in to Barbieland and basically being nothing for 2 minutes, and then it got right into all of the main stuff again, and I was just like, the movie's gonna end in 7 minutes, and what are we doing here? And then it got into all this stuff. But I know that I talked to my sister about it, who like wasn't even that hot on the movie, and she was like, okay, I did cry during that part, but I also, like she like took time to be like, that scene did make me cry, even though she didn't really enjoy the rest of the movie. Talk to me about that scene, because I remember you saying that really did something for you, and I'm curious what it was like on rewatch as well.
I don't dislike a montage. I think you dislike a montage, right?
I don't want to say I dislike it, but it does take me out of the film every time there's a montage of real people in a movie that's like is clearly not them, But that wasn't the only reason, but that was one of the reasons. I was just like, damn.
I think for me it's like the emotional like climax in a way. Like you are building and building up all of these ideas of like what a woman's supposed to be and like what you can be and how easy that can be taken away or cut down by men and their behavior and their effect on you and how you feel about that and all of these things. And then to see this just like beautiful montage of mothers and children and little girls and taking it back to sort of like before you knew about the patriarchy and before you had all these terrible thoughts about yourself, and like after those things sort of, it's like that's when you're a child, when you're a little girl, you don't know about all that, you're just kind of like living. And then after you have kids, I feel like it's not like the patriarchy doesn't affect you, but now you're a mom, and like it's about your kids, and it's about like putting them up, like how they sort of, that quote that Ruth Handler says, I don't know, it was just like an emotional, just like, wow, we are all Barbies and we're all like capable of so much, and we're all just girlies. I don't know, it just like really, I'm such an emotional movie watcher, like it just really, all of it hit me at that moment. Yeah. To like have all these emotions that they're complicated, but like they're worth it in a way, I guess. I don't know if any of that made sense. It made sense,
and it's like you don't have to explain that to me. Like if I was having seen that movie and liked it, that scene not working for me in the moment, it's also a scene that's not really for me in the moment. So like I think people who were the opposite of me and were out of the movie got into the movie during that time, specifically women. Like the 4 people I've talked to about this movie, who maybe, I'm not going to say how they felt about the movie, but they all were like, that worked, that was not the issue. So I was like, all right, I think I'm just off base here, and that's fine and expected. I'm just being Ken.
I don't think there's any other way that it could have ended. She couldn't have just stayed in Barbieland. She had to leave.
I agree with that. Yeah, let's talk about this now. The ending. Just like, I think she should have left, because that's what the movie was gearing up towards. I think, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to hold this. I'm going to hold what I'm about to say for nitpicks. Okay. Because it really is just like my only just real nitpick with the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite scene of the ones we talked about? I think my vote will go to either the Barbie breakdown in Barbieland or the I'm Just Ken, like, musical number.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's such a hard thing. I think emotionally, like to my core, it has to be the bus stop scene. I know it seems so small, but to me, it just is like, it's just like it's the heart of it.
I think it's a good call.
Yeah.
It also is like
Yeah.
probably one of the things that's gonna age the best about this movie is probably like that moment. Like I could see that moment in like a screen, like in 15 years from now, or even like 10 years from now, when you see a montage of Margot Robbie's like best moments, you know, like that they play at the Oscars or the Golden Globes. That's gonna be like the ending or the beginning, you know, like it's a pretty great thing.
Or I know this is super dark, but when Anne Roth dies, I feel like people are going to be passing that one around.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like that'll be a big.
That's going to get 48 hours of circulation on Twitter for sure.
That and like whenever they do like at the Academy, like the awards when they do the memoriam of everybody.
Wow, that's going to be crazy because you don't get moments like that where like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we'll see that. Hopefully.
Sorry, that's dark. Yeah.
Remember when I said Ruth's been dead for a while? So I think you're good on the whole dark thing.
That's true.
Real quick, just like best Barbie.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite? I have Margot Robbie's obviously out of it. I think she is. Yeah. She can't be in consideration. I think I have 3 nominees, 2 of which are real nominees, but one of which is just like a personal favorite. So the 2 real nominees in my mind are Issa Rae as President Barbie, and Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. I just think that like more so Kate, but really when they're both on screen, like they're both really great actresses, and they kind of like command the screen for like the very short screen time they get. My third one was Emma Mackey as Physicist Barbie because I think she's just like really cool. I've seen Sex Education, and she's great in that. This is the only other thing I've seen her in. And I was just like, I want to see more stuff. You're cool. I like you.
I love her. Yeah, I thought she was great in this. She had so many Sex Education people in this movie. There were 2 others.
That's true. I don't know their names, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's the one Ken who's so cute. Love him. And then the intern man at Mattel.
Right. Okay, so the other Ken is named Mizero Gatwa. And I guess these 2 guys play lovers in Sex Education.
They do.
But his name is Connor Swindles. I haven't seen season 3, so
sorry.
That's tough, you know. That's tough. I'm not gonna watch it for a while.
Been a year.
Yeah, it's at this point it's fair game. But yeah, they're both great.
I mean, it has to go to Issa Rae. She has some of the funniest quotes, I feel like, which it does leak into my favorite quote is, are you watching The Godfather? And like that. I think about it to this day. I think about it every day. It's so funny, and that scene is so good. Like any man showing a woman The Godfather.
When I tell you, I walked out of that movie theater. Krupa wasn't watching it with me. I walked out of the movie theater, and my friend Kunal goes, "Yeah, I thought about you during that one." Because I literally did exactly that for my friends in college, including Krupa. I literally invited them over, and I said, "We're gonna watch The Godfather." And I think by the time I paused it, an hour and a half in, like 2 people were awake. And I just talked and talked and talked. And then every time I talk about that night, they're like, yeah, I don't really remember the movie that much. And it is, after watching Barbie, I think the next 3 weeks, it was a reinvigorate. It actually made me love The Godfather.
Oh my
because
God.
I was like, that's so embarrassing. And then I remember like, why do I love The Godfather so much? And I was like, oh yeah, that's why. And it was just 3 weeks of just renewed appreciation. Really tough look, really tough time for the film bros out there, you know.
It's so funny because I know those scenes were to make fun of men in life, and just I was 2 seats over from me was Ozzy. And just, like, so many of them applied to him that I'm like, we're making men look as worse as possible, and all I can think about is my boyfriend 2 seats down.
It's a tough look. It's a tough look.
But it's so funny. Like, the financial ones where she's like, I don't have any of my money in a long-term savings account. He's like, what?
Yeah, let's
She's
talk
like,
about
nobody
this
has
quote.
CDs anymore. It's so funny. It's so good.
I mean, honestly, like we talked about the like the Godfather one was definitely like high on my list, and the I Know It was huge on my list. America Ferrera's speech obviously could just be a quote, I guess.
Yeah.
What are some other ones that you wanted to shout out, if any?
The beat you off scene is so funny. Like, you don't even know how to beat yourself off. How are you going to beat me off? Like, I don't know. Hilarious. Speaking of sex education, the intern, when Barbie's confused as to, like, why there are only men at the table when she gets to Mattel, he goes, I'm a man with no power. Does that make me a woman? That's comedic gold. Hilarious. And then, of course, the closing line of the film I thought was just hilarious. Like, you think she's going in for a job interview. She's got a blazer on. She's, like, really excited. And then she goes, I'm here to see my gynecologist. And that end scene. So good. I love those.
One of the better ending lines I can remember in, like, recent time.
Yeah.
Because ending with the punch. Because it was like 10 minutes of, like, kind of serious stuff, and then you're kind of like, where's this going? And just ending with a bang and being, like, cut to credit. And I was like, oh, fantastic.
Also, America Ferrera's husband, who's actually her real husband in real life.
I saw that. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. He goes, si se puede, and she goes, that's a political statement. Don't say that. It's so funny. His daughter goes, that's appropriation, Dad. Just like, I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I completely forgot about him. That the two little cutaways to him were brilliant. That was amazing.
He's doing Duolingo on the couch while they're literally doing a high-speed car chase. It's so funny.
I'm trying to think of other. I mean, I mentioned Sublime in, like, best scene briefly, but that was a clearly improvised, like, good little thing.
When Barbie and Ken are first getting into the real world, and there's a billboard of the Miss Universe pageant queens, and she goes, "Oh, look, the Supreme Court."
Yeah.
So good. That's hilarious. There's another one that I really liked where they're, like, skating through, and obviously, like, all the men are looking at Barbie, and all the guys are, like, to Ken, like, thumbs up to Ken. And she goes, I feel kind of ill at ease. Like, I don't know the word for it, but I'm conscious, but it's myself that I'm conscious of. Like, she has no concept of being self-conscious. The second she steps in the real world, she finally becomes self-conscious. And Ken says something to the extent of, like, oh, I don't feel that at all. I feel admired, not ogled at, but respected, and not one undertone of violence. And she goes, I'm getting a very strong tone of violence. And, like, just, like, I love that. All these little things that just, like, they have to experience. And they go to the construction scene. She's like, oh, great, a place will find women.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So good.
It's tough because, like, I don't think a lot of, like, this is what I said, like, earlier in the pod, but, like, I don't think a lot of people think about this movie as, like, a slapstick comedy movie, but, like, there's a lot of slapstick humor in it. And so it's almost, like, tough to be like, what's the best quote? It's like, what's your favorite joke in XYZ, like, pure comedy movie that is not given you know, Oscar nominations? Like, this is that, except it's just elevated writing, and so it's like, you know, it's the same thing. It is tough to, like, pick out my favorite quote, and I think, I mean, obviously you saw this movie 2 days ago, so, like,
so they're all
fresh,
floating on up there.
If you had to pick a favorite, what would you deem the best?
It's You're Beautiful, I Know It, of course. It's my favorite scene. It's so underrated. I don't even think it's underrated. It's just, like, so small and so beautiful.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about, well, I'll talk about one quote, but not in best quote, but in what might age the worst. So this is, like, a direct ripoff of the Rewatchables podcast, which I think we both like. And their category is, like, what aged the worst, but this movie came out a month ago, so it's what will age the worst. The quote where Ruth is saying, mothers stay still so daughters can see how far they go, which I remember in the moment and right after the movie, I sent our group chat that quote like, "Wow, what a bar! What a fire line! What a banger rap bar!" I'm just gonna pull out, and then 20 minutes later, I was like, "Hold on, is that a good sentiment?" It like occurred to me outside of the context of, you know, Ruth basically being the mother of all Barbies, so Barbie's looking at her mom.
Yeah.
And so it was this sentiment of that in the movie, and what I assume to be like, you know, not that mothers have to stay still, but inherently mothers care for their daughters to the point sometimes where they're caring about them more than they like care about themselves or take care of themselves. So in a way, it's like just kind of speaking to what that experience is. But as just like a singular quote, like I don't think you could put that quote on the movie poster and it would really hit. You know what I'm saying? Like in isolation, that quote really does not work. You really need the build up to that moment for it to really stand. Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I think for me, on its own, it sounds contradictory to the whole point of the movie. Like, that mothers are just, once they become mothers, they're just mothers. And everything that they are doing or that they're interested, that they love, they have to stand still, metaphorically or literally, and just, like, let their kids take it from there. I don't see the value in that. Like, you're still a person, even if you have a kid. Like, no one says that about fathers. Yeah, it just seems like it doesn't fit to me.
Yeah, I think I told this to you when we talked last, but it feels like Greta Gerwig / Noah Baumbach, whoever wrote the actual line, wrote this line in like 2016 and was like, this is literally what we're going to build a movie around. Turns out they didn't. And they were like, where are we going to stick this banger screenwriting quote that I made? And they just stuck it there. And it was like, okay, a writer was here, basically. And it doesn't necessarily fit. That's one thing I had in what's going to age the worst. The other thing, which is probably what I think the big thing I had here, was the fact that this is a Mattel movie. And Barbie sales are going to double in 2024. And we've already seen that Mattel has agreed to make like 10 to 15 other Mattel property-based movies, which, you know, I'm not going to say that it's not going to be fun, because in my mind, the direct comparison is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where 15 years ago you have The Dark Knight and Iron Man come out the same year, 2008. It simultaneously establishes Christopher Nolan in like the Dark Knight world as like a filmmaker to be reckoned with. And also basically shows you like Robert Downey Jr. is like the king of the world in Iron Man. And spawns 30 Marvel property movies, 20 of which are like mostly forgettable, I'd say. Like they're like fine or good maybe at best. But you kind of have to like really be in that world / be a kid. Like it came out when you were kids. So I think it's like, I'm not going to say that it's going to be bad. But it is just like, you can already see that like you're missing the point, in my opinion. Like this movie's not good because it's a Mattel property. It's not good just because it's Barbie. It's good because you have Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie like driving this movie and the creativity behind it. And they're both like, Margot Robbie's arguably our biggest movie star, and Greta Gerwig is in the conversation of like next great filmmaker alongside Jordan Peele, who also has 3 movies.
Yeah.
Ari Aster, who also has 3 movies. For the listener, Jordan Peele is Get Out, Us, and Nope, and Ari Aster is Hereditary, Midsommar, and Beau is Afraid. Like these like young-ish, like 40-ish year old filmmakers who are kind of like the next great big thing. And I just think that in 15 years we're gonna be like, yeah, Barbie was sick, but like, God, the rest of this is just like not as good. Or maybe there's like 1 or 2 standouts, and you're just like, you know, whatever. But like we really did not need all of this. Like I just wish Margot Robbie made other things, or I don't need Lena Dunham making a Polly Pocket movie. Like this is just not what I need in life. I don't know. I just think that we're gonna look back on it with a little bit of a sour note. Whether that's deserved, I don't know, because I don't look back at Iron Man or The Dark Knight sourly, and they were great. Right. But I do look back on like that as like a bittersweet. Like that was the start of all of this bullshit that we're seeing now. That's just not good every time you go to the movie theater.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't mind, like, I didn't mind the Avengers movies and all of the sort of Marvel things that happened up to a point. It's just, at some point, they were just about making money and they were no longer about the actual stories or making a film that stands on its own. Everything has to be a callback and everything has to play off the nostalgia factor. Nothing is new. And if it's new, it's about the fracturing of the universe. And so there's no rules, so they can do whatever. And I think that's a cop-out. Like, there's nothing creative, inventive. And I think Barbie checks those lists. I think it brings something new to the table. It brings a message that's important, not just like something we've seen before, copy paste. And so I think you're right. I don't think that's a product of Mattel. It's a product of Greta and Margot. And is Lena Dunham making Polly Pocket? Is that who's doing that?
Yeah, it's Lena Dunham directing, and I think the lead actress is Lily Collins. From Emily in Paris, which I don't have opinions on her actually, but I just think it's funny.
I know. So Lena Dunham is so interesting. She made, what's that called? Something called Birdie, Girl Called Birdie or something like that, which was with Bella Ramsey and Joe Alwyn. I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And Lena Dunham is not a bad creator. She's just a annoying person. So I do wonder if it might be something that's, again, sort of says something and is interesting. If they keep doing that, I won't have a problem with it. As long as it's not just becomes this like money monster that has nothing to do with actually caring about what's being made and actually adding to a conversation, that I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It's the copy paste for me that is icky.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think it's going to be really easy 5 years from now to put a couple of jokes in a movie like Polly Pocket and be like, isn't it funny that, like, we stand for everything that's wrong with society. Moving on. Like, you know, like Disney Channel-esque humor. It's just like, I know, you, like, there's writers behind this who are just like, we got to show that we're not stupid, but really we're telling a story that doesn't matter. So it's like, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Nitpicks. I don't know if you have any. I have 2.
I think we credited I'll go first. We credited the marketing for this movie, and I think it did a great job. Now, I feel like it's too much. Like, now every commercial you're watching is Barbie coded in a way. Like, there's so many Google commercials that are now just, like, about Barbie, and there's I don't know what car they were driving, but, like, the, like, obviously product placement during the car chase sequence is just kind of like, that's icky. And that to me is like, it takes you out of it a little bit, because I didn't hate the car chase sequence.
It was fine.
I don't, this is so weird. I don't know why. It makes me emotional when people start chasing each other. So I was like crying.
It makes you emotional. It makes you tearful when...
idea why, but like when people start running, it makes me cry. So like I
can't wait to watch a Bourne movie with you one day and just you be just bawling the entire time.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe it's that one Bourne movie where she just immediately gets fucking headshot. Maybe I'm scarred. Maybe I think everyone's just gonna have a dead headshot.
Yep. 15 minutes in. Every time a car chase starts, you're like, I have 7 minutes to live. That's It's just reality.
Yeah. I don't know. So that, I'm like crying, but then I'm like so aware that I'm watching a commercial. And I think for me, that was like, ew, cheap, icky, you know?
Yeah, that felt like the Mattel aspect of the movie really shining, is like, well, we're going to make money.
Yeah, yeah.
2 nitpicks I have. One is just the whole Will Ferrell plotline, which, like, I think it was great. Like, the great aspect of it was the intro when you see that Mattel is run by old white men. Or just, I guess, white men in general, but old white men. And props to Mattel for being able to take that hit and be like, we are acknowledging this. But 2 things about it is that, like, A, it also felt like Mattel understanding Gen Z humor and being like, you have to be able to take a joke. So we're going to get ahead of that and just take the joke, but also make $1 billion. And 2, like, everything after Margot Robbie visits the office is poppycock. Like, it just doesn't matter narratively, but they make a point to keep cutting back to Will Ferrell like 4 times in the story. And I'm like, why did you even show up? You should have just stayed in real world. We didn't have to have him be in the movie. Like, after that. Like, it could have just been like a Will Ferrell heat check. Like, oh, yeah, he came in for 7 minutes and had really, really funny scenes, and then we don't really need that pressure. Because that's what leads into my second nitpick, which is that the whole movie builds up to this. You have a bunch of, like, moving parts. So you have, like, the corporate aspect and, like, how kind of screwed up that is of, like, it's a girl doll company being run by old white men. And they're very present in the story. And you also have this whole thing of Kens and masculinity and the patriarchy. And, like, the whole patriarchy thing was actually pretty effective and, like, well done. But they have this idea that, like, Ryan Gosling leading the Kens, but the Kens are, like, treating the women poorly. And the way they wrap that up with the little bow is that you have to go find yourself. Because you only feel worth when you're with me, which is like there's an element of that which is like true for what masculinity means nowadays. But I also was like narratively in the story, I was like, that felt like a cop out. Where I was like, if you had Barbie still leave, but instead made the whole existential crisis like through the conflict with Ken, and like I was just like I just wish that they wrapped up the Ken storyline without such a clean bow. And because and my main thesis in this essay I will be because those two things were so apparent to me, when it became about Margot Robbie's Barbie having this existential crisis going into Ruth's like whatever dream white world, all of this stuff happened within like 8 to 9 minutes of like she sees Ruth is in the Barbieland. They reach enlightenment together, and then they have the montage, and then it's like your, mothers stand still quote, and then it's Barbie as a human. And it happens so quickly, and I was like, if you wanted to do this, I feel like you leave Will Ferrell in the real world 45 minutes ago, and you basically just like are more honest about what the Kens really are going through and what they represent, and then you focus 30 minutes on this and really like make it funny and like make it even more emotionally effective. I'm not saying that's like valid criticism of a movie, just being like, let me rewrite your movie. I don't really believe in that, but that's what I felt in the moment. I think that's like what I was like, man, if they had wrapped up the third act of this movie better, in my mind it's like this should win Best Picture based on what type of story it's telling. Does that make sense? Like it was so close.
Yeah.
I don't have any other nitpicks, though. Do you have anything else you want to add? You did say that the rewatch didn't hold up, and then you were like, I refuse to say why. And I'm going to challenge that.
I just think because it's like before I was like, this is the perfect movie. I wouldn't change a thing. But then the second watch, I think you're right in saying like the Will Ferrell, the ending sort of had a few, like it wasn't as strong as the beginning. I have no qualms with real world Barbie scenes. I like them. I like the car chase. But yeah, the ending, I think it was hilarious making the Kens fight each other. We haven't even mentioned one of the funniest scenes ever where
the guitars.
The guitars.
Yeah,
we
should have talked about that.
Wow. That scene, and then they like switch it up on them to force them to battle, and then the battle scene is so good. Good
battle scene. In my mind, that was all like, I'm just Ken, but you're right. There is such a good build up to that we should have talked about that more.
That's perfect to me. But yeah, it's like there's all these strong moments that when you have one that maybe is just like, it's okay, that then it sticks out on the second watch. So
sure. It can still be, I mean, I feel that way about a lot of my like 5-star movies where I'm like, yeah, there's no such thing as a perfect movie. So if it's still, if it's still up there, it can still be up there for you. I'm not trying to...
I think it's going to stay 5 stars on Letterboxd.
I don't know if you definitely didn't see this, but, I went back to 4 for the movie. I was at 3.5, and I brought it back to 4.
You did?
Yeah, then okay. I think I went back to 3.5. I don't know. I can't make it my mind. It's so arbitrary, but I just can't...
It's anti-woman, is what it is.
You're right. I just don't like them as much.
They're just not as cool.
I have one other thing I wanted to just say, which is that is this Michael Cera's comeback? Because wow, justice for Alan. Like Alan was just the GOAT.
Alan was great, and I was listening to The Big Picture, and they said that Alan was almost played by Jonathan Groff. Did you know that?
I don't. Jonathan Groff voiced somebody in Frozen, and that's all I know. Who is this man?
You should look him up.
Okay.
Just look at his face. He was in Hamilton as the king. Like, if you ever watched Hamilton on Disney Plus.
I've been holding out. Oh, this guy's kind of handsome.
Yeah, so it would have made a completely different. Like,
it would have been very different.
Why would that man play Alan? What does he have that's Alan-esque?
I think his interpretation of Alan would have been just like, I'm one of the good guys, which does not play as well as Michael Cera being like, I'm just trying to leave.
But also, I don't love that. So I don't know if you know this. Jonathan Groff is also openly gay. I don't want there to be any implication that Alan is gay and that's why he is able to relate to the Barbies. Like, I think that takes away from, like, heterosexual men can also be allies to women. It doesn't just have to be because you're maybe more feminine, or I think that would have taken away from the message. And I love Michael Cera. He's so interesting.
Yeah, I completely... Michael Cera to me is his character in Superbad for the rest of time, which I think like most people would agree with. I just can't see him any other way. He's also just Michael Cera. Like, that's just... Yeah. He just plays himself in every movie, and it like works for most things.
I love him playing himself in This Is the End, where he is just a coke monster, and he smacks Rihanna's ass. I think when you sent me the prompt for Michael Cera comeback, I said Rihanna is shaking in her boots, and that was the only note that I had.
He is back. Yeah, this was not a real category. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget. One random Alan trivia, I guess. Do you remember a Barbie that we haven't shouted out is Pregnant Barbie?
Oh my God, Midge.
And so basically in the Barbie lore, Midge was not selling well because obviously everyone was like, why is Barbie pregnant? And Alan was introduced as Ken's best friend, and Alan wasn't selling well either. And everyone was confused as to how that Barbie could have gotten pregnant when they never said why. But apparently if you watched like the lore or just like knew the show or movies really well, apparently Alan and Midge are a couple. And that's how she gets pregnant. Whoa. So Alan's the fucking man. He's the only Ken who ever impregnated a Barbie.
He's the only Ken with genitals.
That's right.
Whoa. I think that makes it worse.
I don't know what that means. I'm glad they didn't focus on this in the movie, because I just would have sat... I had to sit with that for like half an hour to be like, what does that mean about Alan? But just a wild... Like, Alan... I thought Alan was a movie creation. Like, I didn't realize Alan is lore, which is nuts.
I think they're all real. Even, like, the one where they're at Weird Barbie after she comes back, and they show the one where, like, her boobs inflate. I think that was real.
Yeah.
Like, there was a Barbie that her boobs inflated. That's so weird.
That's a tough look. Well, we're at the end of the pod.
Whoa.
I know. Any closing thoughts on Barbie? I mean, any, for people who are listening to this, like Mad Men, who haven't seen the movie, recommendations, any just like closing thoughts on what this movie is and means?
I think we needed this as a society. And I know that sounds like a funny thing to say, but I mean it wholeheartedly. Like, I think this movie has hopefully really revived people's excitement to get back to theaters. And in conjunction with Oppenheimer, I think Oppenheimer was also a great film, and I loved it, and I loved the movie-going experience. But I don't think I would have seen it had I not been so excited about, like, Barbie. And I think it's, you can dislike it for what it is, and yeah, it's very consumeristic, and Mattel is going to make $1 bajillion. But it also just says something that's really important, and something I've said to you like, talking about women in cinema isn't new, right? But I think what is new is that we get to have so much fun doing it, and we get to talk about these serious things that, like, people, half of the world, actually go through, and these real feelings that people have, but they don't have to be in the context of women suffering violence at the hand of men. I think some really prominent, great films that I've watched recently that talk about women and how important they are like Women Talking. Great film, but obviously in the shadow of a horrific domestic abuse and sexual violence. She said also about, like, the autonomy of women and women in the workplace suffering horrific assault and just, like, having the right to not be scared at work, and all of these great movies that are women are at the center, and what they feel and what they say and what they think matters, but it doesn't have to be so dramatic. Like, it can be fun to watch, and women can enjoy going to the theaters to see these things that actually resonate with them, and it doesn't have to be, like, a traumatic experience in a way. And that I just love Barbie so much for giving me that cinematic experience, and, like, just getting to dress in pink and go to a theater where there's, like, all this feminine energy and, like, just have the best time.
I love that for you. I love that. I love everything you just said. I also just wanted to call out that, like, I don't think I said this in the beginning because it wasn't on my list of stats, but looking at the list of highest grossing films in general, Barbie's gotta be the highest grossing comedy of all time, just looking at the genres. The only other movies that you could argue are about women or are also about women in love, which are Titanic, which is above Barbie in terms of gross, and Frozen, which is right below Barbie in gross. Both, like, fantastic films, but, you know, ultimately using the idea of love to talk about a woman. Frozen 2 is technically above Barbie, but that was just not a good movie, so we're going to forget that one actually took place.
Oh, interesting.
They forget about how crazy Frozen was. Frozen was like Barbie, you know, everyone was Let It Go. Let It Go was... They did not let It Go.
It's a great film. I love it.
But yeah, you know, +1 on everything you said. Thanks for doing the pod with me. This was fun. Listeners, thank you for listening. This has been Video Village with Mihir, Sean, Liv, Horgan. Go see Barbie. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Take care.
Woo!
Special thanks to my lovely girlfriend Krupa Patel for the podcast's artwork, and my good friend Kevin Cow for the music that you're listening to now. You can find more of his music on Instagram at Waguang Beats. Thanks, y'all.